Gives me a lot of pleasure tonight to announce our Rancher of the Year. If you would, I need one of those. Program to page 20. And tonight it's my honor to have you see the criteria for how we go about selecting our Rancher of the Year. Must be a Texas resident and gainfully ranching in the Texas Panhandle. Does not have to ranch in Hemphill County. Must have been a loyal supporter and participant in Texas A&M Agrilife extension programs and adult activities. Danny Nusser, did you see that one? Must be a rancher that's innovative, willing to change when new technologies, methods, and strategies are available regarding cattle grazing, marketing, and animal management. Must be a mentor and available to share with his neighbors in his area. So since we didn't get to do this in 2020, we have two to present tonight. It's my honor to present the first one, which we're saying is the 2020 Rancher of the Year, to my friend Joe Van Zandt from Mobeetie, Texas. So if you guys could play the video.
Legacy. Joe Van Zandt gets it. His legacy is his passion for the land and a desire to keep learning. But it's his heritage and his roots where that legacy first began to form.
My dad had always told me that you wanted to leave a place better after you've gone than what you found it. So that's been a guiding light over the years of my life of trying to make things better, leave this place in this world better than what I found it. And some of this country, it had to get better because it couldn't get much worse after being washed away and blown away back there during the early times of the 20s and the 30s and the 40s.
This land had been pretty neglected and abused. This land was ready for a good steward. This land was ready for a Joe Van Zandt to come along.
Well, I was born in Tuya, Texas, back in 1936. My dad happened to be vocational ag teacher there at the time. And shortly after I was born, in the spring of 1937, he was interested in becoming a county agricultural agent. And he got a job in Crockett County, Ozona, Texas, which was a long ways from the high plains prairies of the panhandle of Texas. And he went down there and stayed until I was 5 years old. So he was there 4.5, 5 years. And one of his good friends down there talked him into getting a load of sheep. And he had a half section. He and Mother had obtained a half a section of land out east of Happy, Texas, back sometime. I don't know exactly the date that they obtained that, but anyway, he needed to he resigned as being county agent so he could take care of those sheep up in Swisher County. So that's when he quit, and they moved up there probably in about 1941. And so we lived there until 1945. And my mother's father and mother had come to Mobeetie to Wheeler County back in 1901. And they lived in a dugout on the north banks of Sweetwater Creek out here east of Mobeetie. And they wound up being able to pay for a section and a half of Wheeler County land back there in the early 1900s. Then I grew up out here between Wheeler and Mobeetie, about halfway. Lived in the house that my mother was born in 1908. The house was just a 4-room house when it was first constructed back in 1907. It's still there, and it's been remodeled and improved quite a bit over the years. But that's kind of the early history of myself. I graduated Wheeler High School in 1955 and went on to Texas A&M and graduated in 1959 and served 2 years with the U.S. Army in Fort Bliss, and then got out in August of '61 and became a county agricultural agent in Travis County, Austin, Texas. Anyway, after 2 years, needed to move on, and I found out I wasn't a very good salesman. I tried selling veterinary supplies for about a year. My mother could tell I wasn't very happy about the kind of things I was doing. She said, "You need to get back in the extension service."
I guess first started knowing Joe Van Zandt when me and my wife, we grew up in Pampa, and he was our county agent there, and so he was our county agent the whole time we was in high school, and then we graduated, and we took a job and worked on the Morrison Ranch there a couple years, and we went to work for Joe Van Zandt down there. We worked for Joe about 9 years, and then we moved off, and then we've come back, and we've been neighbors, and we've helped each other off and on ever since I've been back. Joe means a lot to me. I tell everybody he's kind of like my ag dad, and Joe's been real good to me and help, and I got a good dad, and I love my dad, but my dad don't care nothing about a cow or a plow, and Joe, so I've always kind of called him my ag dad, and we can sit and talk about grass and cattle all day, you know, and he shares a lot of stuff of things he's been through, and you know, their whole family's just like family to us, you know. They've seen our kids grow up down there on their place, and when we've moved back here, you know, and so they're all a special part of our lives.
Joe Van Zandt is a true beef cattle enthusiast and professional. Joe Van Zandt was part of the development of the beef machine breed that was established back in the 80s and 90s. And Joe Van Zandt is another person that is hungry to learn, even at his current age, and I don't know how old Joe is. At 83 years old, he is still as hungry as an 18-year-old young man going off to college for the first time. Because when I watch Joe come to the beef conference, or when he's been in the grazing conferences that I've attended with him, he's asking questions, and his eyes are lit up, and he's attentive, and he's just on fire to learn something new. And he's done it successfully for a very long time, and yet Joe Van Zandt is still eager to become better.
Well, Joe has always wanted to run cattle full-time, so when he retired, that was his dream job, is going back to the ranch and running cattle full-time, and he really enjoys it. Joe's in good health, and he's still out working every day on the ranch, building fence, doing whatever needs to be done. Growing up on a farm, I was always interested in agriculture and always learning things related to what my dad did on the farm. And so I've always continued to learn about ranching, you know, and cattle and so forth, and Joe's taught me a lot. And I do go to the cattle meetings with him, and Joe's always interested in learning and evaluating things, and he's always wanting to make changes if he sees something that he thinks might be a better way of doing things. And he's always interested in promoting educational opportunities for himself and for other people to attend to. When Joe grew up, he was really involved in 4-H, and he was on the state 4-H council, and he went to Chicago and he showed his steer, I guess, up there at the exposition. But 4-H was always a big part of his life growing up. And 4-H is a great organization. It teaches a lot of life skills and leadership and decision making, and it's helped Joe through his career as a county extension agent for almost 30 years. And then he retired in 1992, and he continues to always be thinking forward about the cattle market and cattle production and learning more.
Joe is never satisfied where he's at. He wants to leave it better than he's found it, and him and Janie are both that way. But they're both good stewards and stuff that they do on the place, and I'd say he'd be at the top of the list as far as a good steward in this part of the country, you know.
Well, I've certainly learned that you don't get too old to learn new tricks, new things. I've learned probably as much beneficial information in the last 10 or 15 years as related to ranching and cattle raising, which includes range management and grasses and pasture rotations, as I did for 60 years. And yet I was always going to educational activities or putting them on. We always need to take advantage of every opportunity, and it's really helped me a lot to still be able to learn things. I hear things and see things. Some of it doesn't stick with me as well as it used to. There's an old extension saying, what a man may hear, he may think that's kind of interesting. What a man may see, he's beginning to believe that, yeah, that might be all right. But what a man does, he believes in.
Joe is a hard worker. He's out working every day, or if it's real cold, he may be up in the office working, but he's always working, he's always thinking. Joe's an honest guy. He's a handshake deal kind of a guy. He's a Christian. Joe's just been a great guy, and he loves the land that he works on.
Our 2020 Rancher of the Year, Joe Van Zandt.
So, Joe, I hadn't had a chance to tell you this. You've only got 1 minute. That's hard for Joe.
It's not as hard for me as it is for you. Y'all know that.
So, I got to tell you this, that I've known Joe almost my whole life. And Joe and my dad were extension county agent colleagues. And Joe was always close to my family. And Janie loved my sisters and I like we were part of their own family. And they've treated us that way. When I moved to Hemphill County, there wasn't a place in this town. There wasn't a place in this town to find to live. Not to rent, not to buy, nothing. And I was staying out south of town with Dan and Caroline Cornett just temporarily in a spare bedroom. And one night the phone rang, and it was Joe and Janie. And they said, we have a house down on the ranch, and it's that house you saw. It's out on Sweetwater Creek. And Tanya and I lived there for 10 months. Joe never asked me any questions, but he knew that I'd gone through a rough patch. And he and Janie provided for Tanya and I just like they would their own kids or grandkids. I've learned as much. I saw more grass on that place than I could ever imagine in the Texas Panhandle. And I've learned to respect Joe as a rancher besides being my friend. But ladies and gentlemen, I know no finer person. And Kurt, he's your ag dad, but my dad left this place back in 2004. And Joe Van Zandt's been my dad since then.
Andy, you get choked up a few times, and you're not the only one. They made that video a long time ago, and I never had seen it. Andy said, I'm going to get you a copy of that, and I'd wondered, Andy, I mentioned to the video guy this afternoon or sometime today, I said, I never have seen that. I need to get a copy of that. He said, well, I'll get one. You've spruced it up a little bit. Thank you for your comments, and Kurt, and Janie. Kurt's just like family. My family knows that. And because he and his wife, they was 4-H kids when they was growing up. Both his kids were born in the house that Janie and I live in now. And getting on up long in the tooth, I still get out there, but sometimes I need some help. And I have Kurt's phone number on speed dial, and I've got Bill Ridgway's phone number on speed dial, and one or two others. Lonnie's. And all, because they come around and they call me every once in a while. You need some help today? And hopefully, generally, I'm getting along all right. Because that's what keeps me going, is keeping care of them cows and calves. And as we get older, having something to do and to look forward to and to make us get up in the morning, even on cold mornings when the snow's blowing, if it's not too deep. I know I've got to get out there and break a little ice or something like that, rather than sit around the house and drink coffee and all. But that's what I attribute being around here for 84 years. And another thing that keeps me going is, for a long time, part of this video there, I feel that God put me here on this place to make some of that old sorry farmland better. My dad didn't farm much, and there's been a place or two around that used to be farmed. We had a hermit bachelor that lived next to us.
One minute, Joe.
Okay. Anyway, I asked Dad why he didn't buy that place when it came up for sale, and he said, that's the sorriest damn place in Wheeler County. Well, guess who owns it now? And I agree. And we've brought in some other land just like it. And that's part of what my purpose in life is to try to reclaim some of that. And listen to Frank Price this afternoon. I'm just kind of getting started on what Frank's done. Andy, thank you.
So, Joe, I want to ask Tommy Meek to come up Tommy is your county extension
Yes.
agent and my colleague. And so Joe's family were in the Hereford business way back a long
Yeah.
time ago.
They were.
Joe used to show Hereford steers. In fact, he showed a Hereford steer in Chicago in the International.
Placed second in his class.
Placed second in his class. This bronze Hereford Bull trophy is the premier trophy of the American Hereford Association, and I'm grateful to them to allowing us to purchase one of these to recognize my friend Joe Van Zandt as the 2020 Rancher of the Year.
Thanks, Andy.
Let's go over here and take a picture.
All right.
You got it? So one of the purposes of the Beef Cattle Conference is to provide encouragement. And it's one of those underlying attributes of our work and this event through the networking, the conversations, the camaraderie, the socializing, the fun that we all have with each other. And it's an opportunity to not only get together, but to share and to help each other leave this place better off. And so I believe that one of our duties in life is to be an encourager. And when I got here, I was a wounded warrior. I had lost 500 cows to the drought of 2011. My lifelong dream was gone. I never wanted to be a county agent. My dad was a county agent. But you know what? God's got a sense of humor. Because I've been a county agent the last 8 years, and it's been the best 8 years of my life. So one of the things that happened to me is a new set of friends. And so when I was in the Corps Cadets at Texas A&M, they made us memorize that there's no greater love than the love of a soldier who would lay down his life for another. And most of you are familiar with the scripture that Jesus said, there's no greater love than the love of a friend who would lay down his life for another. Well, when I moved here to Hemphill County, most people didn't know my circumstances, and I really didn't want them to know. But I began to know a gentleman who has become one of my lifelong friends. He is one of the finest encouragers that I think could have ever been placed into anybody's life. And if you read on page 22 and 23 what his children and his wife wrote about him, you'll understand what I mean about Steve Rader. Steve Rader is one of those special people that come along in life that's not only dedicated to what he's done and he's passionate about his life. I saw a quote yesterday, it's not about how many years we live that matters, but how much life that are in the years. I think that's so true, Steve. And Steve and Linda have taken us in as friends and treated us, Tanya and I, like kings and queens, treated us like part of the Rader family. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege tonight to announce the 2021 Rancher of the Year, my friend Steve Rader.
Past, present, and future generations. It's a part of who Steve Rader is. For his entire life, he was taught to appreciate his heritage.
I've realized I have enough wisdom to know that I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors, of my granddad and my dad. My dad grew up in Shattuck, Oklahoma. He went to Oklahoma State or Oklahoma A&M. He was a great livestock guy, and he had a caring heart. He took care of things. He was a musician. He thought about being a veterinarian, but he came back to the land that his dad had put together. I saw my granddad and my dad financially invest in all of us. And they did that, and we have to do that too for the next generation. And how they're raised, the values they're taught. Well, you know, honestly, stewardship that I learned it. The real important lesson was at church. When you learn about the Holy Land, and you learn what a prosperous, beautiful land that was, and then how through lack of stewardship, it's turned into a desert, so much of it. That caught my attention. And to learn that, you know, at our church, we used to have Stewardship Day. And they'd have farmers and ranchers give a little talk or, you know, things like that. And so they involved our environment in our worship, and not that we worship the environment, but that what do we do to maintain it and take care of things. And so that was a neat deal that I attached to, because I was really interested in the wildlife as a kid. And it all goes together. And I can't help but go back to maintaining a place, and has to be done. I see so many places that nobody takes an interest in, and the infrastructure and everything is so run down that they can't start up. It's just too far gone. And so that's one thing we're working on here at this place, is better facilities or upgrading our facilities and keeping decent equipment. That's just part of sustainability. Plus, you hope you have some money left over to have some fun with. If it's not fun, it's not going to last. And you got to have some fun and enjoy the days. Enjoy every day.
When we were first married, like most young couples, money was not the most abundant, and so he did everything he could. He got fencing jobs. The oil business was just starting to pick up in the area, and he got fencing jobs. We had a few chickens. We raised some chickens and sold eggs to save money for our first refrigerator. And we had a mama cow that had lost her baby. And so he got on the phone and called around and found a baby orphan calf down around Wellington. And so we loaded up the kids in the car seats, and he made some sort of contraption that would hold a baby calf in the very back of the Suburban. And we went down and loaded it up. I can still remember looking back, going down the road and seeing that calf looking over at the back of the seat. And the kids couldn't watch forward where we were going. They had to turn around and watch that baby calf.
My dad is a rancher. He is very patient, which I think it takes a lot of patience to be a rancher. You don't have a lot in your control, but he deals with that pretty well. And when I think about that on a personal level, he was so patient with us growing up, and he's so patient with our boys. And he had his full-time job that he did outside, but then he always made sure we had some weird pets and other things. And so he just added to his pile, but he did it with a smile, and he loved it, and he loved for us to be happy.
And he is a good rancher just because he takes care of what he was blessed with, and not everybody does that. We drive around and we see lots of overgrazed pastures or skinny cows or stock tanks that are empty, things like that, and And he has always taken care of what he was given, and even the little things, down to his fat barn cat. He makes sure it's well fed, and he just has always been a great steward of the land and anything that he's had to put his hands on.
I prayed about everything I ever did, and God sent me a great gal, a partner, great partner. We've had a lot of fun and a lot of adventures, and some of them weren't all good, but we had Linda's gone along with whatever harebrained idea I could dream up and try to make a living. And the great people we've been able to lease land from and work with, it's just been a blessing. And Linda's she's been a great partner on all that. She corrects me when I need a little correcting, and we go on. And she's an asset. And raised 3 kids that are smart and are involved in all kinds of businesses in themselves, and that's a blessing to us. Then we have 3 little grandsons.
It was an honor and a blessing to be able to raise our kids on the ranch. Justin came along first. His granddad was a rancher. He was in the middle of working cattle and checking cattle from his car seat on lap. So he's just a natural to be in the ranching business. Haley went to college and majored in agriculture. Surprised us to no end, but she said, well, this is our family business. I want to know more about it. And she's married Bryce, and they are together, have cattle of their own and property of their own. Sarah is our CPA. Because of her expertise, she can give us advice and help us know tax benefits and things that would help us. Even though she's not out on the ranch on a daily basis, she does help us daily.
Steve, as far as winning this award and what this award embodies is, the Rader Ranch has been around for a very long time now, yet Steve is absolutely not set in his ways. He's always learning. He's always willing to try something new. He's never too far out one way or another. He always stays kind of in the middle of the road on deals, but he's always progressive. And I think that's, embodies the award. And just as a person, he's always out helping people. He's always the first, he's extremely active in the community, whether it be Rotary or church or just someone in need.
Ranching is a tough life with many risks that demand determination and grit in order to survive.
Well, just one evening we had 12 sections of grassland burn off, and it was over half our ranch, and it was pretty traumatic.
Through the wildfire, that really enhanced some of his characteristics, he and my mom. I think it brought them closer together in their marriage. Hard times can be hard for people, especially marriages, and people can either do better or worse together. And they are definitely a pair that does better together. And the fire showed that. They're not complainers. I don't picture my family, and especially my parents, as people who complain. You're dealt what you're dealt and you deal with it, and that's exactly what they did. If anything, they tried to be a blessing back to those who were a blessing to them in their hardest time.
I have to speak about the people that were so good from all over this country, that donated their hearts, not just their financial abilities, but their concern and their caring. That was amazing. And people from all over.
Through the fire, they just put their head down and did what they had to do. Actually, when it was happening, my dad and a cousin and brother and a few others were out there on the ranch trying to put things out, and we didn't know if they were okay. But it just happened that my dad butt dialed us, and so he called, and he had no idea his phone was in his pocket, And we were around my grandma's kitchen table, and we were able to hear them and hear that they were okay, and they were putting stuff out, but we also heard them say, ah, and they got burnt. And that's hard to hear on the other side of the phone when you can't see what's happening. But they came back, and they were still smiles, and even though they were overwhelmed and knew that they had a long road ahead of recovery and didn't know what they had lost yet, they still found ways to be thankful. It was not unusual, and I'm so blessed to have had 2 great-grandparents that were 8 miles away different ways growing up. We spent so much time at my mom's parents and my grandparents of my dad. Those relationships are really special. He has maintained those, and he showed us how to respect our parents. And you don't always have to do what they say, but love is unconditional with parents, and I know that we'll feel that. I feel like I already feel that towards my nephews, so I can't imagine my own kids. And I really want to be able to show my kids what my parents showed me, and having that special relationship with the grandparents and just having the whole happy family.
Good job, Steve. We're all proud of you. Our 2021 Rancher of the Year, Steve Rader.
So, in my work, there's a lot of people we deal with, but one of the things that was said here about Steve, and this applies to Joe, is they're always willing to learn, and they're always looking for new ways to improve. And I can't tell you how many meetings that both Steve and Joe have been to of our extension work, and how dedicated they are to what I call the 4-H Club motto, to make the best better. And so, Steve, congratulations.
Thank you, Andy. Let me see that thing. I do have to say a couple things. I've not been so surprised as this, except for the one time when I was at Dairy Queen and the girl gave me the senior citizens discount without me asking for it. I was truly shocked. And I didn't know about this until this morning. But I do thank Andy and the Ag Committee. It's an honor. And if you look in that book and you see the other people that have been honored, I'm very thankful to be included in that group. And I do stand on the shoulders of my family. Some hard-headed, hard-working people, and I've been blessed by them. And all these, I hope. Well, I love the Texas Panhandle. I'll be blunt. Some of my friends in the land bank have heard me say that before. I've traveled some, and I've been around, but I love the accent of the ladies. I love that. The way the guys talk. I love the way the guys bite their lip and just keep going when things get tough. There's not many places like that. So thank you all. I'm honored.
Thank you. Let's go over here for a quick.